TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no rain with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop. Come on, baby, higher. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop.
Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for the Midday Market Report with good friend and colleague, Mr. Andrew McInnis from McInnis Picks from WagerTalk. If you're not following him, shame on you. Go down to the scroller below. Go check out all his work. Follow him. Believe it or not, he will follow you back just like myself. And a shout out to our proud sponsorships. Of course, it's WagerWire. If you haven't downloaded the app, please hurry on over to Google Play or wherever you download the app. It's free. I promise you, myself, Travis, Zach, Amber, Holly, Jay, Daniel, everyone will take great care of you. And of course, our new sponsor, Viva Tequila Seltzer, just came out last week. A new brand, a flavor, coconut. Head on over to your local sports bars. Games, I know they're at Boston Garden for the Celtics and the Bruins, wherever you can get it. Tell them JD from ECSI sent you, and we'll take good care of you. And first, before I bring Andrew in, paying my respects, my dues to the legend, the GOAT, Mr. Dave Cokin, who passed early this morning. Dave, a friend, a colleague, we had some great texts and DMs from way back. We're talking 2011, 12, 13 when I finally jumped onto these spaces. You definitely paved the way. A legend, will be missed, never forgotten, and a big part of WagerTalk where Andrew is here. Great response from Twitter and X, just what you meant to our community. And may you rest in peace, pal, and shine upon us so we can catch some of the breaks that you caught throughout your legendary career in our lane. So without further ado, the star of this show, Mr. Andrew McInnis. What's up, Andrew?
What's up, Jeff? Very well said. And yeah, my thoughts and prayers with Dave Cokin. I mean, I didn't know him too long, several years, but the thing that sticks out to me is the KBO show, Jeff, during COVID. I never thought I'd be hosting a betting show talking about Korean baseball, but that was really the chance I got the most to connect with Dave, because it was on the same platform that you and I are using right now to record this show. And what's great about that, it wasn't connected. We didn't have any producers behind the scene, anything like that, any fancy graphic stuff with WagerTalk. It was just Dave and I. We log on together, and very similar to you and I, Jeff, probably not as long a combos, but you and I set some records. But we would chat beforehand. We would chat after the show, and I'd really get to know Dave, and he would teach me. And just one thing about him, very similar to yourself, which always means a lot to me. He treated me just like everybody else. You know, I know I'm a lot younger than a lot of people I work with, but he treated me just the same. And whether it was disagreeing with an opinion that I had, or whether it was agreeing with me or cracking jokes, it was always great. So, I'm thinking of Dave today, and I always loved reading his tweets and hearing from him. And, to a lot of people, to have someone like Dave shoot you a text, for me to just see a text come out of nowhere in the middle of July asking me my thoughts on a CFL game, somebody like Dave texting me about something like that, it was always pretty cool.
A shout out to Mr. Daniel Berry, Sports Highlights, and Mr. Jason Berry at Fansided. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And what really caught my eye in a lot of the tweets is just his kindness. In these lanes, it's not easy. And we talked backstage about the Jim Fights of the world. I talked about, the Bob Gamirs back here. I used to get the newspapers, and on Sunday, get Bob's picks, for $9.99. And the Friday was like you could get all these, 1-900 win and whatever. When we were kids growing up, when I first started in these lanes, there was no cell phones, there was no internet, and so our newspaper was our sources, not like today where there's a website for everything and an update in the split second. But people would reach out to Dave, and you can read it in the tweets. Thank you for listening. Thank you for opening the door, paving the way. You made us feel comfortable, because it's not easy in these lanes. Everyone remembers the losses. They don't remember the wins. And the trolls are by the bazillion nowadays. So he made it a lot comfortable and easy for us to say, hey, come on down, enjoy it.
And just a staple of professionalism, too. Always loved to have fun and laugh and a good time. And you would share personal notes. Loved his animals. He had cats, and he actually would always ask me how my dog was doing. I think he texted me and asked me more about my dog than how my picks were going myself. If I had a big winner, he would say, just like you, how's Henry doing? More treats for Henry. If I had a big hockey winner, he would say. So, just super friendly, and you see all these people that are coming into the sports betting world and the handicapping business, and they're talking about these 100-unit picks they have out and all of that. The staple of professionalism and who I'd want to follow are people like Dave and people like yourself that carry themselves with such class.
Well, much, much appreciated. Again, he will never be forgotten. Definitely missed for sure. CFL last weekend, I think we went 1-0-2 in released plays. We got a couple pushes, and fortunate on the two pushes, we got an early win. But what did I notice? A couple things. The dogs were barking again. Hamilton, back-to-back weeks, looks like the greatest show on turf. And the Elks suck, and they still suck. How's that sound?
And they were favorites. and that's the big thing. They were favorites last week. And I think, because you and I did two shows. What was it, back-to-back days last week? Is that what it ended up being? I think it was, Wednesday and Thursday did we do? Or what did we do last?
Wednesday, Friday,
yeah. So, and the fact of the matter is, and I make it very clear, too, when I don't have 100% of, my mind made up, right? Because you and I will talk on Mondays or Tuesdays here. I appreciate the move today, but I don't always have my mind made up. And I said to myself one Friday, and then the weekend came, and I waited, and I was like, you know what? I didn't want to go against this team again, or back this team again. And how much of a home field advantage do they really have, Jeff, is the question, right? I mean, we're asking ourselves that about the NFL now. And a lot of people I respect from WagerTalk, they've said because of how big the stadiums are in college, these players that come to play, like remember Joe Burrow when he was going to play at Arrowhead? He said, I played against crowds bigger than this in college, right? These guys aren't intimidated by the crowds. And you take a look at Edmonton, what should there be as far as the point spread differential, road versus at home? What was that line, Jeff? If it was, are you going to tell me that Hamilton would have been -3.5 or 3 at home, and we're going to give it 3 points for home field? I hope not, because Edmonton hasn't done much to deserve that. But and I'll tell you what, one thing I really, really noticed, Jeff, that we can take out from a betting perspective to learn moving forwards, that unfortunately I didn't capitalize on, but we can learn moving forward. We did mention this play, and I got to tip my hat to you actually, because you did put your money on the table with this one. The traveling that's really caught up to some teams. Ottawa beats BC the week prior, and they travel from the West Coast to Ottawa, and Calgary beat BC, and then of course Calgary travels to Ottawa and loses outright. I mean, I don't know. Is this Ottawa team good? Have they been catching teams in bad situations? Have they been playing the Elks and Hamilton too many times? It's hard to say, but one thing that we can really say, we need to get our maps out. We need to be following the travel situations and be really well aware of travel, Jeff. I'm sure you agree with me right now in the CFL. That's become a real big factor is travel. How much has a team been on the road, and how comfortable are they at home? Because right now, if you've got a team that won a big game and then they're going across the country their next game, that seems like an automatic fade from what I've learned this year in the CFL. That's my big takeaway so far, I would say, of the summer. Is these travel spots. Really, really is.
And I'll piggyback off of that because I got to give you some credit where it's due, where you've been breaking down how many of these teams are getting fat and these wins off of the Elks. And I will say Hamilton, but Hamilton the last 2 weeks has looked like a juggernaut. Well, they pumped the brakes and said, not so fast this week, and we're going to get into that game because they opened up as 3.5-point home dogs, and then now it is skyrocketed to 5.5 at the Circa. So we'll get into that. We got 4 games this week, kicking off on Thursday. A real good game. I almost one of those must-win spots again, and it reminds me of Calgary a couple weeks ago. 4-point home dogs that won outright. And this is BC traveling to Winnipeg, and BC opened up 3.5-point favorites with a 49 in the hook. Currently at the Circa, shout out to, of course, Jeffrey Benson and Derek Stevens, the best in the business. They got it now, BC -4 with the 50. I'll say this, it's 50 across the Vegas Strip, 49.5 at DraftKings. But here's what I want to tell you, 4 at the Circa, 3.5 everywhere else. So I'll say this, Jeffrey Benson and the Circa have taken some sharp, I'll say a little heavy money so far on the BC lines.
Absolutely. 3 in the hook, then the 4 is like you said. One thing I'll mention out of this, the bye week, of course, for BC, coming off the loss against Calgary. How many times has it happened? When you want to talk about angles, in the NFL, Jeff, I'm curious your experience with this, because I know Ralph Michaels has all these numbers he posts about how a team performs before and how they perform after the bye week. But I've noticed it has been a flat spot for a lot of teams going into the bye. You'd think they'd want to give it their all because they know they're off the next week, but it seems like they're already preparing for being off the next week. Some of these teams have been flat before the bye week. So if you can project which team, look ahead, okay, this team has a bye coming up, this team has a bye coming up, this is who they're playing, looking a little bit flatter. But a lot of times this year, the teams coming off the bye, and most recently it was, Hamilton that was very successful at home against Toronto. But a lot of these teams, I was looking at the schedule, they have been at home after their bye week. Not the case here. So you come off the bye, and of course you're on the road in Winnipeg. But the big thing that sticks out to me here is that the number is the same, Jeff, as far as the total as what we saw last week with Winnipeg. And that's where I'm going to go, because this offense is fantastic for BC. They're well rested. Vernon Adams Jr., he's proven, because we saw it. I had the over BC versus Calgary. It should have probably gotten over there. It was 52.5 and 53. I understand this is a couple points fewer in this one against Winnipeg. But Winnipeg, 1-7 against the spread. But let's forget about that for a second. They're also 1-7 with the over-under. They've got one game that's gone over the total, and that one game had so many turnovers you'd think the quarterbacks forgot who they were throwing to. So to me, that's the angle we have to look at here, because this is a big game. You're going to have guys on both sides. You're going to have people because at this point, I'd argue that there's no value. You were saying to me before about, at what point are the Elks going to make people money? Because at least last year, the difference between the Elks last year, the Elks were making money for people because they were dogs. Now they've been favorites sometimes. Well, Winnipeg, they're really getting only money time people are betting on them right now is if their reputation. They've been in the Grey Cup 4 straight years. They've won 2 of the last 4 years. They've been the top dogs in the West. So let's say, similar to me when I did the KBO, let's say somebody just started handicapping the CFL this season, right? They're looking at us like we're crazy seeing this point spread, right? Are you kidding me? This team 1-7 against the spread. They're only 3.5 dogs. They should be 6-point dogs. And I get that, Winnipeg is going to slowly get it together, but there's 2 problems. Their offensive line is weak, and their quarterback has lost his arm strength. So I think the run game is going to be crucial. I think the bye week doesn't only help the offense for BC, it helps their defense. Because as you know, we've seen it every year, and you've done a great job of calling these Grey Cup games. The fact is the CFL changes the second that the weather starts to get cooler here in Canada. And so you need to be built to play defensive games, to run the ball, to check down the ball a lot more. And I think that we might be able to start making money betting unders on BC, just like we are betting unders on Winnipeg. So as of right now, I don't have much to offer on the side, but I will say I lean towards the under once again. If we want to talk about the numbers for BC, 4-3 ATS, 3-4 over under, 5-2 overall, 2-1 ATS at home, 2-2 ATS away. They're 500 ATS as a favorite here. To me, this is a game where I'm just going to look towards the under. I'm very curious your thoughts. How far does this number go? You said there's a 4 there. Does it get to 4 in the hook? Because in the CFL, talk about key numbers. I think 4.5 is actually a key number in the CFL. If you can get that, it's good to get.
No, I agree with you, and I'm going to piggyback off you because when this season started, again, the high expectations of Winnipeg, their team totals were 27.5, 28.5, and they weren't getting close. I think we actually hit one because we got the sign from Vegas. I think they had a 24.5, and I think that was the one game they might have popped to 27. I got 23.5 juiced over -120. I would say right now, today, on Tuesday, July 30th at 3:47, my play on this game would be the Winnipeg team total under the 23.5. Now, if you want to wait and see if it goes to 24 or 24.5 and buy, then fine. But that's definitely a go sign, which correlates to your under as well here.
And you have to think at a certain point here, the game that Winnipeg was involved in last week, I'm not saying they're all going to be like that, but that's kind of the game that they're going to look for to get back on track, right? They don't want to trade points with BC. They know what BC brings to the table. I think that we all know your opponent. Like, look at it from any perspective. We'll look at it from like even a hockey perspective, and that's one thing I'm trying to. I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do for the next season. Some changes situationally that I want to change with my hockey handicapping. A lot of times when and you're a team totals guy, but full game over wise, what would happen when there was, let's say, the Avalanche were playing the Sharks, right? Total 6, maybe we'll say. The game was finishing 4-1 Avalanche. It was the favorite winning, but not being able to push the total over on their own. And so the underdog would hang around. And you're talking, this is a Canadians fan perspective. You want to just hold, you can't try and trade goals just the same way that Winnipeg right now is not going to trade points with anybody. And if you look at it last week, the number did go down gradually in the under, and I gave out the under as a free play at WagerTalk. And by the time game day hit, the number was different. I decided to rock with the free play. Wanted to get the win for the followers. Wish it was in pocket with clients. But at this point, until I see an absolute showdown here, and I think I'll look towards the under. And one thing I will say, a lot of times we're worried about, do you take the first half over, take the first half under? What's the play here? You know what I think, Jeff? It's the old adage. I think we are seeing a lot of garbage time touchdowns in the CFL. It's not like the game is dying off. And the Hamilton-Edmonton game is a perfect example of that to close out week 8. no matter what the score is, teams are trying to score. I'm not saying there's no respect. I'm not saying teams are running, the coaches are being disrespectful. But if you have an under, let's say a 47.5, 48, and you're looking great going into the fourth quarter, you cannot turn that game off until the clock strikes 0, because teams will run it up on you. So maybe a first half look is there, but at the same time, I think the under is a good one. The term "too easy" gets thrown around in the sports betting world. That's how all I heard people saying about BC this week, coming off a buy off a loss. If this number gets pushed much higher, there's only one way I'm going, and it's going to be the underdog, actually.
Again, must-win situation, real tough. Again, we're getting close to the halfway point, Andrew. We're at week 9. It's hard to believe. No, 9 weeks already. So we've got 2 months of data, 2 months of games to go back on, and now again 2 months ahead here. Before you know it, we'll be talking Grey Cup again here. So it's showtime for Winnipeg if they want to make the playoffs. Never mind try to defend their Grey Cup. The only way they'll be defending it is if they're buying tickets this year and they decide to go to the game. On that was Thursday night. Friday night, Montreal at Hamilton. I kind of preface this. Montreal opened up 3.5-point favorites against a Hamilton team that's put up almost 100 points total the last 2 weeks with a 50.5. Now at the circa 5.5 with a 50.5. They said Derek Stevens and Jeffrey Benson, we'll pump the brakes here on the Hamilton Express. Team totals right now, Montreal 26.5 juiced over -120. Hamilton 22.5 juiced under -120. Thoughts on this one, Andrew?
Well, something kind of interesting that came across the desk right before the show was that Cody Fajardo was lifted away from the 6-game injured list, which, if my memory serves correctly, he was only on that list for 2 weeks. So, they put him on that 6-gamer, and they probably saw, holy smokes, this is what our team looks like without him. We better get this guy back out there. And he will be a full participant at practice today. And you have to wonder if the number here certainly reflects that. Now, Hamilton back at home, +5. The thing is, I thought Hamilton's defense got better. But can you really say they did? Because Toronto made a lot of mistakes. And then they got it going late in the second half in Hamilton. And then, of course, Trey Ford comes in, albeit garbage time, scores 3 touchdowns himself. I think this is an opportunity where we come in here and we probably bet against Hamilton. I think that Montreal's made people money. The last few weeks, I think we've seen some weird games with Montreal, but the defense is going to be the biggest kicker. Montreal's defense didn't even look too bad last week. It was their quarterback situation. If they would have had because they ended up covering the full game, as you know, I was tweeting about that. I had the first half play, but if they would have had their third string in, who knows what would have happened in that first half. But clearly the second string was not the answer. If Fajardo was back, he can stretch the field. And the big thing, too, it's not even about talent. It's about chemistry. And I feel like that's the thing in the CFL. These guys don't have chemistry with the receivers like the first stringers do. So as much as Bo Levi has looked strong, he has taken advantage of good opportunities. And then again, the thing is, I was in Hamilton. I heard it. We get a win tonight. Then we beat the Elks next week. We're back on track. This might be the roll here. Slow down a little bit. You're still the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So as much as +5 is kind of that weird number that I usually like to get behind, especially at home, I think fans might be a little humbled. And the funny thing is when I was there at that game Saturday night 2 weeks ago, the crowd, I don't know what the capacity percentage was for that one. It wasn't massive. Like, it was a good crowd. It wasn't huge. And so it's going to be disappointing if they can show up now after 2 straight wins and then Montreal flexes their muscles on them. I'd lean towards the Montreal side in this one.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the numbers here, and I go back to our preseason talk and shows, and again, the Hamilton number stuck out to me, plus 800 as an outlier, and I think too their team total was 6.5, which kind of stuck out to me, just like the Elks. So if you bet over on the Elks ticket, you might as well frame it now or make it a nice doily or dartboard because you're not cashing that one. But what sticks out to me, and I don't like when these things stick out, is the Montreal team total is only 26.5 juiced over. As we know, the Hamilton Express defense, or lack of, was good for a 30 burger every game. I would respect this at 27.5, 28.5. It's almost like they're setting us up here for a Montreal Express, but a low scoring Montreal Express.
That's true. It is true. And again, you think that has Hamilton's defense gotten better? Well, they've made some key stops on third down, third and inches, second and long. They've made some big plays. But I always, it feels to me like Montreal lost last week, Jeff. It does. They won the game. Feels to me like they lost. And so this team hasn't looked right over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And it's almost like straight up, they've got the win, but have they played like themselves to get Fajardo back? And to me, I've just gotten this feeling this year, and I've had a pretty good read on these feelings where a team thinks they've got their swagger back, and they really haven't, and that might be the case with Hamilton. So I'd look to go against them. You mentioned the team totals there. It kind of makes me think, do I look towards Hamilton's team total under at home and just forget about whatever Montreal is going to do? Does Montreal show up in the first half? Do they take some time to get it together? Do they cover the full game? I'm not so sure. But again, I was impressed with Hamilton, Bo Levi Mitchell, the Tim White, all these receivers looked good. It's the defense that I'm the most worried about. And as you said to me, and you just said it yourself, and we used to talk about the 30 piece that they give up, it's not like they haven't been doing that. And it's not like it was long ago when they were giving up 30 points a game. The only difference is now is their offense is supporting them enough, it doesn't matter. Look at their scores the last few games. They've still been giving up points. The difference is they reached like 30 and 40 the last 2 games, right?
Yeah, they've been scoring. The best show on turf here.
I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
Saturday night special, the Edmonton Elks head into Saskatchewan, opening number of 5 and a hook with a 51, still 5 and a hook and a 51. Team totals: Edmonton 22.5 juiced over minus 130. Saskatchewan 28.5 juiced under minus 125. The first thing that pops out to me here, Andrew, very simply is I will take the Saskatchewan team total over the 28.5, and I'll take gladly the plus 105 on this.
You've had quite the read with Saskatchewan and their team totals and looking at this team. And, as you know, I've been hard on their quarterback situation, but they've proven me wrong. And all you need when you have got the talent and you also have the defense like Saskatchewan has is a serviceable quarterback, a guy that can game manage. And we talk about guys in their 6-game injured list. Trevor Harris is coming back very soon. We're waiting for practice reports that usually come out Wednesday afternoon to see what the status of Harris would be right now. But the defense, to me, is the biggest thing. Taking a look at the updated numbers, 5-2 ATS, 5-2 to the over. But a lot of times those games that have gone over for Saskatchewan have been them doing the scoring. I find this line very interesting. And here's one thing I will say. Week 1, opening week CFL, 5% play for me. Saskatchewan plus 3.5 against the Edmonton Elks. And as Saskatchewan was down most of the game, come back to end up winning that game outright. And here we are in week 9 now, plus 5.5 for this team. Or excuse me, minus 5.5 for the team that was plus 3.5 at the start of the season. In the NFL, I always hear people talking about look-ahead lines. If the CFL did this, like Westgate, Circa, and all these places do, right, what would the look-ahead line have been for this one? Because if they had Saskatchewan as plus 3.5 in week 1, they sure as hell wouldn't have had them minus 5.5 in week 9, even though they're at home. Trey Ford taking over. just when I felt like I turned the page and I gave up on betting on this Edmonton team, I'm real tempted. I'm real tempted, and here's the reason why, Jeff. If I don't jump in right now on this 5.5, I believe, just like we've talked about a lot, and it's been wrong, but I do believe that the game day sharp money will come in again on Edmonton. We could see this number down to 3.5. And I'm gonna put my name on this one, because I think that if I don't jump in today, I'll be giving you the typical I need someone to vent to texting you saying, Jeff, do I still give this out because it's 2 points fewer than I liked it when we spoke on Tuesday. So for that reason, sometimes you have to let the number do the talking for you. And at this number, I'm tempted by it. How can anybody bet the under here, though? I hear so much about Saskatchewan's defense. 5-2 to the over, though, like I mentioned, and Edmonton gives up points to everybody. If Hamilton and Bo Levi Mitchell can torch them, what's the Saskatchewan offense going to do? Because they do have a ton of weapons as well. But I think one thing to not overlook, and I'm going to pull this up here while we're talking, one thing to not overlook, the point spread 5.5. So they got their asses kicked, obviously, against Hamilton. They would have covered it in week 7 against Ottawa. They would have covered it in week 6 against Ottawa. They would have covered it in week 5 against the Lions. They would have covered it in week 4 against the Argos. They would have covered it in week 3 against the Alouettes. This team's not losing by 6 to a lot of people, the Elks. They're just losing is what they're doing, right? So the argument I'll get from people is, are you seriously going to bet on the Elks? And I'm guilty of it. I said on your show before, I think the first win they get will be when they're a favorite one of these days. But we're not asking them to win right now. We're asking for a very typical Edmonton Elks loss where they lose by a field goal. And the good news is we're getting almost 2 field goals here. So the only way I can go actually is taking the dog.
And not to cross sports here, because the Chicago White Sox are making history. It's baseball. It's 9 innings. Anything can happen any given day, any given 9 innings. Someone can pull a rabbit out of there, you know what. And the funny thing, not once but twice have they now lost 14 games in a row. And in heroic fashion, yesterday, KC scores an 8 spot to win. So now it's 15 in a row. So again, we've talked now, this is our 3rd year, I think, in CFL, and it wasn't too long ago that the Elks were putting together a 23-game home losing streak. So the Elks doing the Elk thing here, but I can see your angle here. And again, if you're going to pounce, it's not going to go to 6.5. The only way it is going to do is going to start dropping. So I'm going to make sure you stick to your guns with that one, and better buy now. Sunday night.
Sorry, real quick, is that in the NFL, like I always say, in the NFL, when you bet these numbers, you're always doing the sprinkle, as you say, on the money line. You won't catch me doing that in this game. Call me crazy. If they win, good for them. This is a point spread bet only. I'll make that very clear. This is a point spread bet, and that's all it is.
Well, if they do cover and they win outright, I'm going to make sure we get a cameo appearance from Kelly Stewart as she chastises you and says, shame on you, Andrew, shame on you. Sunday night special, and it's a good one this week. Toronto travels to Calgary overnight. The opening number, I should say, Calgary -1.5 with a 49.5. Now a flat 3 everywhere, including DraftKings, including Heritage, Bookmaker, 49.5. So the game hasn't moved other than the 1.5 now to a flat 3. Here's what I would say. Calgary coming off a loss, hanging around. Well, they didn't hang around, and hats off. That was a good play on our point last week. But here's what I'd say. Be careful here, because trust and respect the opening number, and it was only 1.5. I'm not saying Calgary doesn't win. I'm not saying that, Andrew. But what I am saying is this didn't open 3.5, and wanting Calgary money. It opened up at 1.5 for a reason.
It did. And I want to mention real quick about the fact that Chad Kelly, they're waiting for the reinstatement from the league for him to be able to come back and practice with the team. So not only right now is this Argos team, trying to get back on track with their consistency levels, They're trying to figure out who their backup is. If Cameron Dukes is the guy, he's been serviceable. He's gotten them through the season until the Chad Kelly comes back. But Arbuckle's played a lot of snaps as well. Last week was a disaster. Very, very, very ugly game between Winnipeg and Toronto. As you mentioned, that opening number to me looks very weird. Calgary, to me, at home, this is the only thing I'll say. We've made a lot of money. You keep on using the expression hanging around. Well, they can't cash a ticket for us to this week by hanging around. And that's the thing that bothers me the most. They are coming off that loss. They did lose to Ottawa, but I kind of like Toronto here because I think that Toronto being asked in this point spread range to me, and this is one that I would say, give me the money line. Forget about the point. Yeah, this is the one you have to. Just Calgary has done well hanging around, and let's do an update here on their point spread numbers. 5-2 now. As a favorite, they're 1-0 ATS wise, but to me, this is an opportunity here. We're going to be able to bet against them. I think Toronto will step up to the plate. Weird game for them against Hamilton. Very weird game last week against the Winnipeg team that probably gave their best defensive effort. And it was just an ugly game on both parts. This number tells me I think I should be betting on Toronto.
I agree with you. And quick question. And again, the Sunday night specials, I was 1,000% wrong, obviously, with Edmonton last week. And usually those high-scoring affairs, we're getting ready, pom-poms, popcorn, and we're ready for a shootout. And the Sundays usually come up short. Last week they blew over. They scored 70, 80 points combined early, because we'll be back on your channel on Friday. But this smells like a back and forth. Calgary chasing. And if you ask me to pick a side here, I would initially say I think this one might tip over. This has got that 49.5. This one's got that 27-23, 27-24 feel to it.
Well, I mean, last week's play I had with Ottawa Calgary over, it was the Jeff special where I should have listened to you and just played the one team and their team total. This, to me, would be one where you could get two teams. And a lot of times, as you mentioned to me, you need a close game for an over because if one team is up and you're not getting help from the other team, the total starts to fizzle out. Would you say this is kind of a point spread range good for an over 2, +3? Because sometimes if you've got a, +6.5 and that, team goes down 2 touchdowns, the total can kind of fizzle out as well. So I'm right there with you. It's probably a go sign towards the over here. But I do think Toronto pulls off the upset and wins outright. And again, you've got a team that's getting ready for their big quarterback to come back. I think a lot of people are going to get ready for the spotlight and for things to change. And no offense to Dukes and Arbuckle, but the second that they get him back, they might be more of an over team than they ever were because he's going to stretch the field, use his legs. You hate to write these storylines, Jeff, and I'm speaking strictly football because I don't agree with any of the off-field stuff that came out about him, but he's going to make a huge difference. The second he's back, you're going to know he's back. The way he can move the ball with his legs, the way he can stretch the field, it's going to be different. The fact is, Dukes was there to be serviceable, and now you're going to get Chad Kelly back. What you just said there might be really profitable over the next, not this week, even just few weeks, especially with the way they start changing their style. They're going to see a lot less checkdowns once this guy comes back. And I look forward to it.
And DraftKings, I caught you. You're listening as we were talking. There's the shaded number. They moved the Hamilton team total from 22.5 to 23.5. So again, someone on DraftKings here listening very well. Hey, I'm right here. I'm in Cape Cod. I'm about 50 minutes from you, so you know where I'm at. So, Scroller's been going the whole time at McInnis Picks, at WagerTalk, Mayflower Sports. Head on over to YouTube at McInnis Picks. Subscribe. It's free. While you're over there, head on over to East Coast Sports Investors if you haven't subscribed there as well. But as we always end the show, Andrew, a nice little 7-yard button hook. What do you got at WagerTalk for everyone?
Yeah, right now it's a great time to join on for 30-day packages. We still do have some deals. It's a little bit different of a price than it was last week. If you want to jump on for the remainder of the MLB season, you're going to get that for free if you purchase the NFL. We've got sides, totals, team totals, props, all that stuff coming out throughout the week during the NFL season. So if you want to get some free MLB plays in addition to my NFL package, hop over, you buy the NFL package, you'll get the entire MLB rest of the season playoffs included as well. Big CFL play coming out this weekend. Should be out tomorrow afternoon. And other than that, Jeff, hoping to get it going. Want to get that 10-unit mark by the next week and a half here in the CFL. So once we reach that threshold, I feel like we're only seeing green lights from there. So like the board this week, as I've been mentioning, and hopefully we can make some money. And I love the fact that it's back to the old adage, one game a day for 4 straight days.
One game a day. I love that. We talked backstage for a while. And again, here at ECSI, we thrive on the single days in the NFL on Monday and Thursdays. We have a field day on Saturday, picking holes at the college football. And then on Sundays, we sit back and relax, maybe a little action parlay, or we'll just try to single one game as we've been doing. So always great. We'll be back on Andrew's channel Friday around 3:15. You can follow us for some more CFL there. Of course, head on over to McInnis Picks on X and, of course, on WagerTalk to check out what he has there. Jump in for the 30 days. The water's nice. Trust me, I get his plays every day. So 5 o'clock, myself and Riley Magnuson back for the closing bell, the last hour before the MLB trade deadline. So we'll see if there's any big trades there. At 6:15, Scotty Webb for in the batter's box. We'll be breaking down the MLB slate today. So for everyone else, have a great day. Dave Cokin, rest in peace, brother. Keep an eye on our plays here. Send us some good luck. We'll see you soon.